Welcome to the Comics Coffee Metal Podcast, episode 18.
Greetings everyone, and welcome to this week's episode. Today I'm talking to Kevin Mellon. Kevin is a fantastic artist behind the independent series Suicide Sisters, Lovestruck, Gearhead, and one of my personal favorites, Art. Kevin also is a storyboard artist for Floyd County Productions, best known for their series Archer, though he has been moving on and doing some more directorial things that we kind of get into a little bit in the show. And Kevin is also a fantastic musician. His EP, A Girl, A Tree, A Dream, is an excellent heavy rock album that, while not, metal, definitely has those influences and has a lot of great mood and just, it's really good stuff. I've known Kevin for quite a few years now, and not as long as I've known Mike Norton or anything like that, but almost as long. And, Kevin and I just mainly know each other from Twitter. We've met in person, I think, one time at a show in Chicago many years ago. But, recently we've been talking a lot more about music and sharing our own music with each other and stuff like that. And I really like where Kevin comes from. I really like his approach to things, in all things, in art and music, and I really respect his opinion, and I'm really glad we got a chance to sit down and talk. Turns out he and I have kind of a lot in common with a lot of things. We talk about a lot of great things in the show. We talk about some equipment. We talk about art, making custom digital brushes, as Kevin has some renown for, and just drawing digitally and how that things apply to traditional art, and just a whole lot of really, really interesting and kind of inside baseball type discussions that I like listening to, and I know he likes listening to, and hopefully you like listening to it. And we also get into a little side detour about Metallica, and I'll say it now, not to bury the lead or anything, but I was kind of astounded how simpatico Kevin and I are with our opinions in general about Metallica. So that's something at the very end that hopefully you all enjoy too. But I had a blast talking to Kevin. I could literally just have a chat with him every week and be totally stoked about it every time. I hope you enjoy it. Kevin did a great job. I didn't suck it up too much, so here we go. Kevin Mellon.
Okay, my click track came on and I was like, oh shit. Okay. All right, I'm gonna keep me off that way because there's just enough of a lag there. That's one. So I just went up to a Scarlett interface a couple months ago.
Okay.
And I love it, but the latency is a little bit more noticeable than I thought it would be.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's not crazy, but it is enough to make me go, fuck, I need to go to a Thunderbolt interface. So, but it's like I said, it's enough for me tracking and doing stuff right now. Like if I imagine that if I was doing full drums rather than just programming everything, it would drive me insane. But doing just guitar, bass, and vocals, it's not enough to really whatever. Anyways, so you're saying the Friedman technique. I've only just started hearing about this, so maybe it's something I'm not super aware of, or I don't. Maybe I know what it is, and I just didn't realize it was called that. So what is it?
It's basically when you point one, typically an SM57, straight on, and then another one at a 45-degree angle, and they're kind of making their own little corner.
Oh, yeah. No, I do know that. So, I didn't realize that's what it was called, though.
Yeah, they still a special clip now that you can just, attach them together so they don't.
Okay, yeah. No, I almost, when I went to the music store yesterday, I was buying a mic stand, and I had that in my list. I was my list of things to buy was SM57, mic stand, and I had a couple other things, and I really just I walked out with the mic stand and the SM57, but I had on there my list was clip for mic, but then when I got into the music store and I was looking around, I was like, it's a very small music store near not too far from my house. I try to go there because they mostly sell used stuff, and they mostly sell off-brand kind of, they don't have deals with Fender or Gibson and all that, so it's just they sell used whatever people bring in, which is why I like them, because I just basically go and just kind of find random shit,
Yeah, no one's trying to sell you something just because they have
No.
a deal in
Yeah.
place.
And I like going there like I can get an SM57 for $10 cheaper on Amazon, but I don't care that much, you know.
Yeah. I recently that's like my only mic was an SM57, and then I started doing the podcast, and I'm like, this thing is not great for voice.
I've done it. I've done it, and you have to. I mean, it's not. Yeah, you're right. It's not great though. Yeah.
You got to boost it so much, and I think mutual friend of ours and former guest Dave Jordan, he's like, oh man, check out this mic. So I right now I'm using an Audio Technica AT2020.
Okay, cool.
And it's it's no more. It's the same price as SM57. I got a really good deal on a B stock and on Reverb. And thankfully, I forgot to check, but thankfully my interface has the phantom power.
Yeah,
that I can use.
yeah. No, I'm big on phantom power. Like I use it on everything. Even so, before I got the Scarlett, I was chaining an Onyx Blackjack and an Focusrite I solo. Yeah, I solo. So I was chaining those two track things to make one big 4-channel thing.
Okay.
And I loved it. Honestly, dude, I can tell you just having tried a bunch of these different devices that are like, various small home studio things. And I've used to run like Pro Tools rigs and all this other stuff. That Onyx Blackjack preamp is fucking great. Like if you can find one of those things, like get one. I will tell anyone like that thing, the preamp in that is way better than I was expecting. So I ended up using that as my main 2-channel input, and then the Focusrite iSolo, which is good. It's solid. It's a solid thing. As just kind of like, that handled more guitars or bass or whatever. But for the Onyx Blackjack, that was like main guitar, acoustic guitars, and like vocals.
Cool.
Whereas
cool.
the Scarlett,
Yeah.
the Scarlett Pre's are just as they seem to be better. But if you're on a budget, that Onyx Blackjack was great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm currently rocking a Lexicon Omega.
Okay, I have not even heard
Lambda.
that, but that doesn't,
Well, my first interface was Lexicon Alpha, which was a single channel interface. It was like $80. My wife bought it for me for Christmas one year, and it died on me a couple of years ago during Riftober. And our buddy Crank,
yeah,
he's like, dude, I got like a couple of interfaces just lying around. He's like, I got this Lexicon Lambda, which is a 2-input with the phantom power and all that. He's like, I'll sell it to you like super cheap. So I've been using that. It's been a little workhorse.
Oh yeah, that's awesome.
I've been pretty happy with everything. Again, I think everything I'm doing on it sounds good. I have a knack for finding like instruments or using equipment that people seem to like, but I can't really find a lot of information about like online in terms of like what people really think, or people are saying it's underrated. Just like, yeah, this is good. Like my main bass for the longest time was this Ibanez EDB 600.
Okay. Yeah, you're right. I've never even heard of that. That's
No, it's not a sound gear bass. It's kind of like it's got this. It's not a wood body. It's like this special. It's like this custom lucite material or something.
Okay. Oh, lucite.
Yeah. And I think when they came out, like the big thing was like, oh, the guy from Orgy uses it. Like, so even then, that was the 5-string version, which had like this like weird carve on the top.
Okay.
So I can't really, and if I look up mine online, there's like one guy on YouTube who uses it and loves it. Shout out to Darkside Bass. I don't know you, but
is it spelled like SIDE or is it spelled SEID?
Oh, you fucking know it,
okay.
man. You fucking know it.
Right.
But I love this bass, and it's so funny because I'm not ashamed to admit this. The first bass I ever had was this, I want to say either Lion or Lyle.
Yeah, I remember Lyle.
SG bass that a neighbor gave to me that didn't work.
Okay.
It's a short scale SG bass, but he gave it to me just to kind of pluck the strings and kind of learn. And I took a few lessons at a place where they let me use a bass during the lessons so it could actually be amplified.
Okay.
And I'm kicking myself forever because in retrospect, that thing just needed like a new input jack and pots.
Yeah.
And I would kill to have that bass now.
Yeah.
Just to have a short scale SG bass hanging around.
Yeah, no shit. I get it.
But
yeah.
Eventually,
sorry, no, go ahead.
But eventually, I wanted a real bass. And since I was the good son and never got in trouble, my dad was okay with going and getting me a Squier P bass special around. This is around 1997.
Sure,
I want to say. And I've since beat that thing to shit and done terrible things to it. And I definitely need to give it a lot of love and bring it back. But after that, I wanted like my first like real bass. So I saved up a bunch of money and I went to Guitar Center. I didn't know what bass I was going to get, but I needed one with the 2x2 headstock.
Yeah. Okay.
Because that's what Jason Newsted played.
Yeah.
So I just picked up that bass and I liked it. It felt comfortable. I didn't really know what the hell I was doing, but I really lucked into it because it's just like one of the most versatile basses I've ever used. I have a 5-string Fender Mexican Jazz. I have a 4-string Fender. One of the instruments I weird into. The American Fender I have was only produced for like 3 years.
Yeah, which one did you get?
It's the P Bass Plus.
Okay.
They call them. It was produced, I think, from 89 to 91, and they call it a boner bass because the top horn is a bit longer. Than other P basses, and it's got Fender lace pickups, and you can like press a button to switch in between series and parallel. Which to this day, after thousands of hours of watching YouTube videos on stuff, I don't know what the fuck series parallel does. I don't really know as much of a difference.
No, I'm looking it up right now just to kind of see like if I know what that is.
And it, it's great bass and all that, but it's just kind of like there's just not a lot of info on it.
But I remember that. Well, if the one I'm looking at it hasn't been modified, I remember that bridge.
Yeah,
because it's got that weird bridge.
Yeah, because I had fine tuners on it that I lost the tuners on, and I couldn't find replacement screws for them.
I bet you if you emailed Fender, they'd probably like help you out.
Maybe.
Like, you'd be shocked at how much just emailing them and being like, look, dudes, I got this thing. Help a brother out. Like, honestly, this is, I mean, I don't know how you are. This is the type of conversations I like having and the type of shit I like listening to. So,
this is exactly why I'm I'm trying to talk to people I'm talking to, because we can do these, it's not like, how do you draw good? Like, it's
same
it's
answer
like,
for both. A lot of thought.
I mean,
and time.
I don't know if you listened to the one. I don't know if you listened to one with me and Crank, but we end up talking about like VSTs and all this shit
it's
for like 40 minutes.
It's in my my very long podcast to listen to list.
No, it's fine. Yeah. I don't.
No, honestly, I was just emailing with Crank the other day. I emailed him to ask him to listen to my new stuff I've been working on, and I also prefaced it with, dude, I am sorry we have not talked, because he and I used to talk every single day. And it's probably been a couple of years since we did that. And I told him, I'm like, look, dude, have been such a shit friend. I apologize. Like, let's catch up soon. Like, I love that dude. He is like we're very different people, but we're also very similar. And like he and I share a similar aesthetic on things. And like, especially like music and stuff like that, the Venn diagram of stuff that we're into is wildly different and also very much the same. And it's the same thing with comics. And that's why I use him on all my comic stuff, is I'm like, I don't have to direct him at all. I just give it to him and be like, dude, just do you, because it'll be what I like.
Yeah, I really like Crank as well, and he's one of the people I wouldn't mind just talking to that dude every week about stuff. And
you should, man. He's awesome.
He and I have a lot of I kind of vibe with him on like kind of like the tinkerer aspects of things.
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
I can't help myself either. He's definitely more in the deep end with the
well, I would say he's more in the music, deep end with a lot of stuff. Like he's very, that's the thing I love about him though, is he's very thorough. Like, and that's something that like, especially since I've moved into directing on the show I'm working on right now. Like I have to be thorough at times, but the main crux of my job right now is to be kind of like a little bit of everything to everyone at all times. And I really rely heavily on the directors under me, because, it's each department has its own director or whatever. I rely on those directors to be that super thorough person. And sometimes you get that and sometimes you don't. And that super thorough personality type that really does deep dives on stuff is so useful when you're in production. Like it's Like
Yeah.
you need that person, and I love that about Crank, because like just if you ever get the chance to do a book with him, you should, because like he will come at you with like, well, I did this for this reason and this for this reason. I'm like, fuck, man, I never even thought about that, but that works. And even if I don't like it, it still works. Like it comes down to like taste, and not whether or not what he did something that is like quote unquote bad. He never does anything bad, at least for me anyways. It's always like, well, I just want something different, and not because what you did is bad. But also I very rarely want something different. He'll do something and I'll be like, well, that was better than what I asked for, thank you.
Yeah, and even if it's something you're not in tune with, I've had experience with a few things. With Crank, I would love to work with him on a book.
Yeah.
In fact, when he was talking about writing, I'm like, dude, you want to write a short story? I'll draw it for you.
Yeah,
like,
he and I started trying to do some stuff where he was writing like a long, long time ago, and then my life just kind of got into a place where I wasn't able to keep up with what we were doing. And I would love to at some point, pie in the sky, to go back to. There's like this one idea that we had talked about that just was like, it was just us riffing on all these weird puns, but we found a way to make it into a story. And the way his brain thinks about story was so great. Like I really think that guy is he's a special dude. I really appreciate him.
He's a unique person. He's Crank.
Yeah.
Like he's one of those people, like even though that is truly, from what I understand, his last name.
Yeah, no, it is. Yeah, totally is. I've met his parents. I've hung out with his parents. Like they're the Cranks are cool people. Like they're he comes from a long line of like Cranks. So yeah. Shitty jokes aside, but yeah.
Not first off, this podcast is going to be hell to edit.
Yes,
any streamlined thing.
Yeah, it is.
But you know what, people? This is what we got. It's Kevin and I started off on a really fun conversation about some inside baseball music stuff. So just hang on to your pants and try to follow along if you're not used to it.
They don't want to listen to 2 hours of us talking about Machine Head's oeuvre.
Yeah. No, they'll get about it. If they're everything works out, they'll have about an hour of me doing that already.
True. Yeah.
So, I'm not sure if you're familiar, but a few years ago, some buddies of mine, they put out an anthology called Banthology.
It sounds familiar.
From the 11 O'Clock Comics
of course.
podcast.
Yeah, of course. From there,
there's a great community of guys. I've met a ton of friends there, and from there was a small imprint called Kingbone Press.
Okay.
Some Chicago guys like John Westhoff, California guy Bob Garnellis, Slurmo.
Mm-hmm.
They kind of like took the ball and made this. They're musical guys, and they made this banthology. They did 3 of them. I was in the second one, and Kingbone Press has since shuttered their idea, their doors. They did what they wanted to do, and they life gets in the way sometimes, so they had to focus on their things. But John Westhoff, he told me like, hey man, you can have the Banthology name.
Oh, that's cool.
So it's my dream right now that I won't have time for in the foreseeable future, but I kind of want to relaunch Banthology with some more with comic book artists and writers who are musicians doing some shorts, but I also want to coincide it with like an EP of all of us collaborating on some songs.
Man, that's so doable though. Like that's
like I have I have a few projects in line, but I'm like once I get past these first few projects and all that, this is something I could start doing the bones of.
You can start doing the bones now. You can start reaching out to people now, because even like my thing is like, man, like it's like, yeah, we're rock and metal dudes, but like I think of someone like like Brian Hill, who does a bunch of like rap and hip hop stuff, like people like there's so much stuff that you kind of branch out into,
oh yeah, and I love the stuff you do, and I think your EPs, I wouldn't call them metal.
No,
but
God,
I wouldn't call it.
God, no.
But it's not like soft rock either.
No,
it's heavy in a different way. It's definitely hard rock or rock.
Well, that's the thing is like I was joking with this girl I've been hanging out with. Like we were talking, and like we were talking about. I was like, man, I just get the sense that like you talk all this hardcore stuff, you come from this punk thing or whatever, and like And I'm like, maybe people have this idea just from like me wearing all black and looking like a biker metal dude or whatever, that like I'm way more hardcore than I am. And I'm like, listen, girl, I'm hard rock at best.
But we don't have to be, how we look. I don't know how I come across, but there's just as much likelihood I'm listening to Tegan and Sarah than it is I am listening to Pantera.
Yeah, that's the thing is like I am a huge Dillinger Escape Plan fan. I fucking love Dillinger Escape Plan. I never want to make music like that. I just it's not in me. It's not, my brain doesn't work that way. Like I am like, if you took Pink Floyd and mixed it with some Pearl Jam and some light Tool, like, that's kind of where,
that pretty much sums up, I would think, what you've been doing. First off, before we get too far away from it, your first EP, I really like, I know the name of it, but I'm going to say them out of order.
You're talking about the album, A Girl, A Tree, A Dream?
The album, I'm sorry, the album.
No, it's all good, yeah. Well, I've sent you
a
bunch of stuff.
A Tree, A Dream,
yeah. A Girl, A Tree, A Dream, yeah. Thank you, yeah, I appreciate that.
I really enjoyed that, and I also greatly appreciate that you've been sharing the stuff you've been working on lately.
Thank you.
Whenever, I love it when, like, I get a chance to hear what people are working on or see what people are working on, not because it makes me feel like I'm part of some secret club or anything like that, which probably a little part of it, right?
Sure, yeah.
But it's also like, oh, I'm like, this person, is like, hey, I think Don might dig this.
Mm-hmm.
Don might want to listen to this.
Yeah.
Or Don might want to read this. So whenever someone does it, I'm greatly appreciative of it because I'm always more than willing to share whatever I'm doing.
Oh yeah, totally.
Because I'm,
please, yeah.
You might not be looking for feedback, or you may want to say, you know what, on the second track, the drums, maybe try something like this.
Oh, dude,
that's not necessarily.
If you got it, bring it on. I don't send it unless I'm prepared to hear it. You know what I mean?
So, but even then, I don't approach it that way.
Yeah.
I'm just like, oh, let me read this or listen to this as if I'm. And 9 times out of 10, it's like, I'm fortunate to know a lot of really talented people, so I get a lot of I don't really have to like. Think like, oh man, I really wish they would try this differently or do this differently. It's just like, no, I like that, man. That was great. Good job,
No, and honestly, I think that's like a real, I feel that way about the comics our friends make too, like I get a lot of stuff or I see a lot of shit or, it's occasionally someone will think of me when they're like doing like their press runs and they'll kind of send me something, a PDF, they'll toss me a PDF or whatever. And I'm like, man, I'm happy to retweet you or talk this up. I don't know what you, I don't know if you want or need anything from me, but also this is fucking rad. Thanks for sending it,
Yeah, exactly. And as you know, I make, and as people listen to the show have heard me. Thank God I don't edit much, and people are probably used to me, tripping over myself, but, I make music for my comics, and I was kind of wondering, whenever I talk to someone who's also an artist and musician, like, do you ever see that's something you would be doing? I know comics aren't your forefront right now; they're not.
Sure.
But if I can guess correctly, they're not exactly in your past yet.
No,
it's still something that you plan on doing.
Yeah. Like it's a two-sided question, because you kind of hinted at like, where I'm at and what's going on and stuff like that. And like the where I'm at thing is very much a product of like, and we can get into this if you want to, or we don't have to. I don't really care. I can talk about whatever, but like, I am like, I've been very honest with people about how burnout I've been on drawing, and when I explain it, like, cause people are like, "What? Drawing's like your life, dude? Like whatever." I'm like, "Yeah, it is my life. I've been drawing every day since I was like 6 or 7, and I'm 41."
Listen,
and some people are, Go ahead, sorry.
I've said this before to people, like, it doesn't matter what you do if it's your job.
Yeah.
Like, your job can be going to work and petting puppies all day.
Yeah.
At some point, you're going to come home and
be
like,
petting puppies.
Oh, these fucking puppies!
All these goddamn dogs.
It doesn't matter. You need to step back and recharge.
Yeah.
You've kind of gone from comics. to
Well, yeah,
I
and,
don't call it detour, but you have a career
no,
now
it
as a
isn't-
storyboard
it's,
artist,
You know, it's
and that's a lot of drawing.
yeah, it is. It's one of those
You
things
know?
where I don't think people realize, and I think people don't realize that the intensely brutal schedule that is I Archer, and then then the shows, the things that I did after I stopped working on Archer full time. Like, I'm still with the company that makes Archer. I have just transitioned over to doing other shows
Okay.
with the basically the path of leading to where I'm at now, where I'm directing on a show that we're making now, which means
That's awesome.
I'm drawing less, quote unquote, but I've spent
Mm-hmm.
all the last like 2 weeks drawing a whole fuck ton. But it's
Yeah.
it varies. It goes in and out. But basically, I spent from 2011 to about a year and a half ago drawing anywhere from 100 to 200 drawing basically boards, not even boards, just like you're doing thousands and thousands of drawings, and then you're doing revisions on those thousands and thousands of drawings, and that's just every episode, so it's like
Mm-hmm.
and then the show that I'm on now, I'm so grateful for the board artists that we have on it, because it's so much more intense than anything we've ever done as a studio. It's so much harder. It's so much more work, and they're just killing it. And I'm sitting there going like, God, like if this is a young, it's like working in comics.
Yeah.
This is a young man's game, this is a young person's game. Like, cause
You're the guy telling them to make the revisions.
Yeah, I have like a 60 to 60% female staff on the boards team. So I don't want to discount anything. Like, they're fucking amazing. Like, there's such good people. And we did a really good job hiring on our board staff for this show, but also they're generating hundreds and hundreds of drawings a week. And it's way more than I ever did in comics, and way more than you ever would in comics. And it's like, but that's not to belittle comics. It's just a different machine.
It's you're not doing these fully rendered.
No.
But it's also I've always kind of viewed storyboarding as like, doing the layouts, but like the most hardcore extreme way.
Yeah, no,
because
and
I don't know if this is the same for you when you're making comics, but like the layouts are the hardest part.
yeah, well, that's the hardest part, and that's for me is where the work is. Like, so like boarding, like I always got and still get very frustrated when I have to draw something more than once, and that's kind of just a flaw in me. But the process is, it's like you rough something, then you tighten it up enough for the leads and directors to look at it and give you notes, and then you throw it all out and you do it again. And then once they have gotten it to a certain place that it can go to edit, then the producers have their say, and then you either throw it out and do it all over again, which generally that doesn't happen. It does, but it doesn't. But generally, or you're just doing like, well, we removed these 6 shots from your scene, so you need to fix this because now it's broken, stuff like that. And that's just the process. That's the process. And excuse me, comics, that process is kind of in your thumbnail layout stage. Like, you should be, and this is my opinion, so anyone can yell at me for whatever, but like, my opinion is that before you get to the inking phase, because I don't really pencil anymore, it's just layouts to inks, and I think that a lot of these days, I feel like anyone who's really inking themselves, that's what they're doing anyways. There's not really a penciling phase for a lot of people who work like that, from what I can tell. But like, when you're doing your thumbnails, when you're doing your page layouts, it should be that process. You should be both person doing the job and then the producer saying, yeah, that doesn't really work with this version of the edit. We're going to need you to rethink how this thing works. And you need to be doing that with yourself till you get to a place where you've got like the best story on that page possible. Then you start inking, and then the inker personality of you fucks it all up, and you're like, well, that's just what it is.
Yeah, I ink myself, and I've been trying to, it's always an experiment for me finding what's the medium between how far do I push it with the pencils before I trust myself.
Really, man? I'm gonna be completely honest with you, and I fail at this all the time, but really anything beyond a circle and a stick figure for a body, you're going too far. You know, like,
well,
and,
you know,
I say that in all sincerity because I don't do that. It's do as I say, not as I do. But I do honestly believe that we hinder ourselves from just drawing from the blank page and then just doing a finished thing with ink. Like, people are so amazed at Kim Jong-gi, and I'm probably saying his name wrong, but they're so amazed that he can do that. And I'm just sitting there watching it going like, y'all can do that all the fucking time. I do that all the fucking time. Yeah, I'm not as good as him because I don't practice it like he does. Yeah. Like, that's the thing, is we don't sit there and we don't make that a habit. We don't make it a rule. We sit there and we do all these layouts and thumbnails and all that rather than just sitting there and staring at the blank page, thinking about it, not wasting any fucking time drawing, but just thinking about it, mentally visualizing the thing before we actualize it, so that when we go to actualize it, we're like, yeah, I've drawn this in my head 3 times already. I know what I'm doing.
Yeah. And that's definitely a point I would like to be at, because it's kind of going from like just thumbnails to renders, but
it's tough. I'm making it sound easy. I fail at it. Like I said, I fail at it constantly. So
well, I do that now because now that I got the iPad Pro, I'm doing more digital work.
Yeah.
And it's a lot easier to fail because I don't have to wait for whiteout to dry.
Yeah. Dude, no, going digital changed my world. I used to like have all these problems with inconsistent proportions and like heads were too big or like whatever stuff like that. Moving to where about 10 years ago, or when I was working on Love Struck, moving to just penciling digitally, and then that allowed me to edit in a way that I never would once I had penciled something. I was not that person that would pencil something, realize it was wrong, and then erase and fix it. I'd be like, fuck it, that's what it is. I'm not redrawing that. And I would just ink it and fix it as little as I could in the inks. Whereas once I moved digitally, it became like, head's too small, resize 10%. Okay, we're good, or head, that sort of thing.
Yeah, that's definitely part of my workflow now is I pencil digitally and just kind of spot as many of the fuck ups as I can there.
Yeah.
And then I just blow it up to 11:17, reverse the image, print it on the back, put it on my light box, and start inking.
You print it on the back. Why don't you do like a blue or a gray, just super light?
Because I've watched so many videos on like, here's the settings you use, and here's my way of doing this, and for some reason I can just never get rid of it all, and I'd rather just lightbox it.
Oh, okay. So for you,
then spend time cleaning it up, because for some reason it's picking up a few of these lines here and there, and I can't understand why, even though I'm doing a bitmap scan, it's picking up these damn lines.
Huh. Okay.
I should go.
It makes sense. I guess I probably am just way less. That's not something that bothers me.
I should look back into that. But I say lightbox, but it's one of those light pads.
No,
it's like super thin.
I have one gathering dust right now. Those things are great though, because my lightbox used to get so hot, and it also was like big and clunky. Whereas those light pads, like I have one of those fucking crazy big, like 13 by 18 ones or whatever.
Yeah, that's what I got.
Yeah, and I don't use it that much because honestly, I've worked all digitally for most of the last decade. So like, I bought it and then just barely use it, but when I do, I love it.
Yeah, and I'm only doing my personal comics are going to be, I'm doing actual pages because I'm planning on doing Kickstarters, and pages will be rewards and things like that.
Yeah.
And also I do like inking. I've developed a fondness for inking with a nib.
Mm-hmm.
So
what do you
I do
use?
like
doing
using
the 102, 107. What do you, or a G, or what do you?
I don't know the name of it offhand, but it was these ones Ryan Stegman.
You should never listen to him.
I shouldn't. And it's going to be real awkward when he's on the show in the next couple months.
Yeah.
But
well, I mean,
he's going to be talking, and I'm going to be like, is someone saying something?
I think he would agree with me in that you should never listen to him. So,
Oh, yeah. Every artist says, you don't listen to me. This is what I use.
No. Every artist says don't listen to Ryan.
No, but I really like them. They're a manga nib.
So it's probably the G.
deleter nib.
It's probably deleter G.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
I really like them.
Yeah.
I've also been experimenting with a parallel pen, a parallel nib.
Oh god, I love sketching with parallels. Like that's what's on my couch is I keep a parallel on a sketchbook and I just like work on that because I can get that super thin line, and plus I love like kind of like doodling with like calligraphy and stuff every once in a while.
Yeah.
But yeah, I started doing that like a decade ago, and then like it was nice to kind of see other people do it. Like I did it on a whim, and then it's like, oh, that's just how Jim Mafu draws all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah, a buddy of mine, Ray, who's also a big Machine Head fan. As we,
Shout out to Ray.
He started with doing a parallel pen, and I'm like, oh wow! Like it kind of like was seeing that person find their tool that they're going to use.
Yeah.
It's like that's so awesome. So eventually, I think he just uses a refillable pen. I was looking for some nibs.
Oh really? Okay. Yeah.
And I finally had a reason, like, not that I need a reason, but I was inking a page with some trees and some, like, stuff like that. And I'm like, oh, that'd be really cool to use the parallel on there. And I just really loved it. So, I'm going to have to find a reason to do it all the time. But, yeah, I do like the tactile, even though the iPad Pro has been the best experience I've had working digitally.
Yeah.
Normally I have a cheaper monitor, not a Cintiq, but that I used that worked fine for a while, but it wasn't 100% the same. The pen felt cheap and light, and
well, man, the pencil, and then I don't know what screen protector you're using. I'm just using
Paper-like.
Yeah, everybody raves about the Paper-likes. I've tried it, and they're good. I just thought they were way too pricey, so I use one that sadly isn't available right now because of all the Corona stuff. But I used one from a brand called iCares, and it was like $7. It's like $8, something like that.
Oh, okay.
And it like honestly, the grip on it for me is so fantastic. Like Paper-like works, but they're $30, and if you fuck up putting it on, you're kind of shit for SOL. Whereas this one, it's like I just order 2 different packages and they comes with 2 or 3 per package, and it's like, well, if I fuck up putting one on, but luckily, no, either way though, like the pencil with like a screen protector, and it's not even about screen protection, it's just about with that grab, the grip, that resistance, so good. Like it's a game changer for everybody.
Yeah, I'm so glad that I decided to take a chance and invest in that because it's really opened up a lot of avenues for me.
Are you working in Clip or Procreate?
I initially bought Procreate because I was like, I don't want to buy a subscription service to Clip.
Yeah, you got to.
Because I already have it on my computer. It's really annoying.
Yeah.
So everyone's like, Procreate, get Procreate.
Yeah.
And I got it, and I've been messing with it. And I like it for if I'm just going to like jump on and start working on a commission or a sketch. Like, yeah, I'm going to just open up Procreate because it reminds me a lot of Sketchbook.
I love Sketchbook is still one of my favorite desktop apps. It's unfortunate that they have decided not to really develop their iOS platform that much.
Yeah. But I eventually just went and decided to go with Clip.
Yeah.
For doing the work, because the workflow is there. Yep. It's almost...
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, it's almost a one-to-one.
That's what I was about to say. Yeah.
Thing, and I can use all my friend and brushes that I bought.
And you can sync your workspace from so it's like you can sync your workspace, their cloud service, like while like like I have my issues with how it works, and so like you can sync everything, and it's wonderful. The fact that they've made it so that there's so many steps to use Dropbox and like iCloud and all that other stuff is, I get it. I get where they're coming from. They want you to stay in their world, but but it's the same thing that every place does. Like Dropbox wants you to stay in Dropbox's world. Apple wants you to stay in iCloud world and all that. I get it. Whatever.
And to be honest, like I'm in the situation to where like I'm not working on a new page every day.
Okay.
So, comics is not my full-time job. I'm Dada first and foremost, dude, and then comics are done around that. But for me, like I just, I upload to Google Drive from my computer if I'm doing on the computer, on the PC, and then sound like an old man on the computer.
Yeah, are you on a Surface or something, or are you on like just a Cintiq with your PC?
No, I'm on a the monitor I have is a Huion,
Oh, okay, yeah. How do you like that one?
which I like it. It's an HD monitor. It's fine. It's served me well for a few years.
Okay.
It's just
Doesn't Crank have a Huion?
He's recently upgraded to a Cintiq.
Yeah.
Oh
my! I'm shocked.
I think he got an old 22 HD.
Okay, I mean, yeah, like shit. He probably has the same model that I have.
He had the
like,
Unova.
Yeah. Oh, that's what he had. Was the Unova? I remember when he bought that.
Yeah. And I had that as well.
Okay.
And that thing was really just good for making quick revisions and maybe doing some coloring.
They sadly were not as good as they should have been.
And they stopped supporting drivers after Windows 7.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Unless they've made a change, but I couldn't just use it.
don't keep up on that stuff, so yeah.
So I got this Huion, I think it's the GT something. It's a 21-inch HD monitor.
Okay.
It works perfectly fine. I've done a lot of work on it.
Yeah.
I've colored on it. I've done, if it was my only outlet, like I would do less digital work, but I wouldn't be worried about it.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the what do they call it, the parallax?
Yeah.
From the the pen to the cursor on the screen.
Yep.
That's not great. It's not terrible, but it's not great. And again, like the pen feels really light and cheap.
Okay.
And it's kind of you there's just too much of a disconnect, I think.
Yeah, no, that's a huge thing though, because like that's all stuff that like contributes to your psychological approach to what you're doing. And the more really the more things that are in your path, the less you want to do what you feel compelled to do. And so that's a huge thing. And like that's why like when people are like, oh well, why don't I just get this or this? And I'm like, rather than this other thing that everyone has, and I'm like, yeah, like if you take the iPad Pencil argument, like well, Surface Pro does more and it's cheaper in the long run, and I'm like, yeah, I had one for a year and I sold it for a reason.
Yeah,
they're solid machines, and I while I hate Windows, I loved working with the Surface Pro, but then like working on my Cintiq and then iPad with the Pencil, it was just like, nah, bro, like these two things, this thing is not gonna win this argument,
Yeah, a buddy of mine, Eric Jimenez, great Chicago artist.
Oh yeah, I think I've met Eric.
He, I was talking to him, like, what do you use digitally and all that? And he's using a Surface Pro.
Yeah.
But he's like, well, I kind of also needed like a new computer. So it's kind of a 2-in-1 deal for me.
Very much so, yeah.
So I'm like, but he's like, if I had the choice, I'd go iPad.
Yeah.
So,
and I had a buddy that was selling like one of those like Surface Book Pros. And he was selling it for a reasonable price. And I was in need of a traveling machine at the time. So I bought it off him, and the thing I loved about it was the ability for this tablet to separate from the keyboard and be its own independent thing.
Yeah.
And it was wonderful for that. Did a bunch of jobs on it. It got me through about a year's worth of freelance work. But at the end of that year, like I just was like the Mobile Studio Pro came out and the iPad Pro came out, and I bought both and sold the Surface. Like, and now here's the thing though, the Mobile Studio Pro, I used it probably pretty regularly for about a year. It is a giant paperweight right now. So I have this $3,000 paperweight that's literally sitting next to my desk right now that has been sitting here. I update the software on it, and that's all I do on it.
It's really funny because I watch a good handful of tech YouTubers. And the funny thing is, a lot of them are like, who's the iPad Pro for? Like, who's going to do this? Who's going to buy this magic keyboard that's like $300 and make this a laptop? Like a laptop, but that costs more than a MacBook Air and things like that. And, I have to comment on every single one of those videos like, guys, digital artists,
yep,
this is a game changer because the closest comparable machine that is already glitchy as hell and all that is like twice this price.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Yeah. Like I bought the Mobile Studio Pro like on a whim. Like I was working on Black Lightning, and I did I spent like, I took a week off of Archer to do the season finale of season 1. And so like, and that was just like, and I was in the studio on Black Lightning, working all that week or two on it. And like, once I got that paycheck, it was the same day and the same amount of money that the fucking Mobile Studio Pro was. So I was just like, fuck it. Like I have my Archer paychecks coming, whatever. I'll be fine on money. So I bought the Mobile Studio Pro. And but the thing is, though, is I didn't do any sort of realistic thinking about what I had just done. And I say that to say this. What I had just done was I had spent a week to a week and a half boarding a very complex, like, not complex, but just a very intense kind of like season finale fight scene, whatever thing for this live action TV show on the first gen iPad Pro. It didn't even occur to me. I just was like, oh yeah, Mobile Studio Pro, that'll be like the way to go because it's like a full machine. I can run Photoshop and all that. It's great. I love it. I've traveled with it. I've done a ton of stuff on it. I will probably any comics work that I'm doing in the near future, which I'm like that I've been saying for the last year that I'm trying to ramp back up on some stuff. But like, like it's gonna happen on that machine, but it's also gonna happen on my iPad. Like it's gonna be both. And it's one of those things where I've done the Mobile Studio Pro is great for the way I use it. When I use it, it's just like it's not an everyday production machine for me. And some of that's the basis of my job and the fact that I have this computer that's tied to a security system. But some of it's also like, yeah, I just wouldn't use this for this anyways,
Yeah.
Like I would almost rather like all the security shit that I have on my work PC. Like I would almost rather than be like, can I just get this all in my can we just figure out a way for me to use my iPad so I can just sit on my couch?
Yeah, it's funny because I never really envisioned myself as a big digital guy. Like I like the convenience of a lot of the tools for it, but I was like, I'm still, I still like inking. I still like getting my hands dirty with that.
Yeah, well, you've seen my shit.
But necessity,
so my hands are literally my
you made a custom brush of your fingerprints so you can
yeah.
still do that little trick you do.
I'll betray myself a little bit. I am very lazy and I should have made a custom brush out of my own fingerprints, but here's what happened, and this is the first time I have ever said this out loud, but those fingerprints on my digital stuff are not mine, weirdly. I know.
Scandal.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, no, and I doubt the dude whose fingerprints they are would give a shit that I'm saying this. He probably doesn't know. So what happened was, I don't know. It was like years ago. I was in Archer. I was working on some stuff, and I was doing something digitally where I needed fingerprints in a really quick pace. And my buddy Ty in Canada, Ty Walker, he's done a bunch of Marvel stuff. He did some books at Marvel with my buddy Dennis Hopeless, stuff like that. I knew he had scanned in recently his fingerprints to make his own textures and stuff like that. So I asked him to send me his fingerprints so I could make a brush real quick, do this job that I needed to do really quickly. And then the intention was I would always make my own later. I would scan my own later. Well, 6 years later, I've never done it. So really, Ty Walker's fingerprints are literally on everything I've done for the last like 5 or 6 years. So
when this episode goes out, that's going to be part of the tweet, the secret origin of the fingerprint brush.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where like, but the thing is though, is if you look at my original art, like it looks the same, like it's fucking fingerprints and like whatever, like
like who really knows the difference?
Yeah, nobody does. But that's the thing though. I will say the thing is like Ty, gave me his fingerprints. But also like I am the one who tweaked the brush for every program. So it's like for Photoshop, I have fingerprint brushes. For Sketchbook Pro. And that's also the reason why even when I did my custom Sketchbook Pro set, like I was talking to Autodesk and I was like, well, I do all this fingerprint stuff. And they're like, you maybe shouldn't put your fingerprints out on the web for other people. And I'm like, that's fair. Like in such a naked form like that. It's one thing to put it out in my artwork where you can't really figure out what it is because it's not a clear print. Even though it's not mine. But I do take the time with each program that comes out to recreate these brushes, and that I do that with everything. Is I make, as much as I use Friendin brushes and as much as I use Kyle brushes, the things I really default to in every program are still my brushes. Like my main Photoshop brush is still a triangle brush that I made based on a sketchbook brush that I made based on a Callum Watt brush that he made like 10 years ago, you know? It's like Callum Watt made a brush and he showed me how to make it like via tutorials, and then I talked to him in person about it, like at some Autodesk thing, and then I made my own version of that, not knowing if it was right, just based on what he had said. And then so now that's still my main Photoshop brush, like all these years later, you know? So
Well, that kind of speaks to the same thing as, the actual hardware having some sort of barrier of entry, where it's like,
yeah.
you're trying to replicate the thing you're most comfortable with,
Mm-hmm.
and whether it's something you become comfortable with while using it digitally or not. Like my favorite brush right now from Frendon is the Not Scott nib, which I think is based off of Scott Williams.
Oh, that would make sense, yeah, because Scott's a 102 dude.
So,
Yeah.
that's, I really like using that. But I've started experimenting making my own brushes, but mainly for more like the ribbing and textures and stuff like that.
Yeah, but honestly though, man, like I would say like fucking get into it, man. Like I love making brushes. Like
it's
totally
a lot
understand.
of fun. It's very addicting.
I totally understand how Kyle and how Frendon and others have gotten to be that's their thing, because like I have like dozens of my own custom brushes that I made, like cloud brushes, all these texture brushes, like Autodesk, like I'll be a little snarky, but like they for whatever reason removed all my shit from their websites. I don't know if I pissed somebody off, but like so like I get people now, but they paid me years ago to make a custom brush set for their website for people to download. That I still get people literally just today who were like, thank you, like because like, hey, can I get this? And so I just have a Dropbox link that is in the tweet below the old Autodesk tweet. Like that says here, I don't know why they took it down. Please tell them that you want it back up. But also here's the Dropbox, But it's like I get people like who want that set, and it's like, well, I spent a lot of time developing this set for myself. They came to me like being like, yeah, we want your set, like And it's like, but for me, like it's less about like I don't give a fuck if they put it on their site or not. For me, it's about like I just know how appreciative I was when to go back to Callum Watt, like Callum he's a sweetheart of a dude, but also like he was so open with his process back in the day, and he was I would wager if you asked him now, I'd be like, you could probably be like, hey Callum, can you screenshot me your current brush settings? He probably would. I mean, I would think anyways, because that's how he's always kind of been. But I took that stuff, and while I didn't use it straight up, because like eventually I would start trying with his settings and be like, well, that's cool, and it works for him, and then I would just start tweaking stuff. So even though like I have this custom triangle brush in both Sketchbook Pro and Photoshop, neither of them look like what he does. And the biggest thing behind that is, even if the settings are exactly the same, I am not Callum. Like I am not that dude. I am not like, well, and very much so I'm not that dude. And then I'm not getting paid to work on fucking Star Wars. But, like I am not that. I'm not his brain. I am not his hands. I am not his years of experience. I am me. So the brush still feels like me. And that's kind of what I loved about like that's kind of what I love about all these, like, even if you do take some Kyle stuff or some Frendon stuff, and it's like, well, it never looks like they're examples, because it's me. So,
well, it's, I think it really becomes, creating that with digital art, there can kind of be the disconnect we kind of mentioned, but also kind of this like, where am I in this? Cause I'm not, physically putting ink down. I'm not physically putting pencil down. I'm using some other tools someone else made that, while good and useful, how do I create more ownership over the marks I'm making?
But do you really feel like those two things are different though? Do you really feel like there's a difference between buying a Hunt 102 and using a Frendon brush?
Now, there's definitely a different like feel and different like approach.
No, but I just mean like aesthetically, like or just capitalistically or whatever.
Well, actually,
to me, those are the same things.
I think for some people, and for me, at times there is that kind of disconnect from that. But I can honestly say, from having worked digitally exclusively for the past month and a half, and then finally starting to ink on board again the past couple of days, it's been informing what I'm doing.
How would you say?
Well, I'm very heavy-handed, in terms of my lines.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
So, getting that right line thickness.
Uh-huh.
So, because I think on the way I draw and the things I do and a lot of the little, I guess, nicks and marks and, hatching here, texture thing here, if I'm not careful with how heavy-handed I have the lines, it looks extremely amateurish.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not trying to shit on myself or
No. I get what you're saying.
I can tell.
No, but that's kind of what I'm getting at is like I'm sitting there going like, okay, so like what's really, where are you really coming from with this,
Yeah. So from working digitally where, pressure is almost even more important when you're applying it on the pen and all that.
Yeah.
It's really, and the fact that I can't grip the Apple Pen too tight, I can't push down too hard because I know that's not going to do anything. It's not, if anything, I'm just going to end up damaging the device.
Mm-hmm.
It's led to me backing off a bit more and being able to get those more delicate lines I need to go get.
Yeah, which honestly, I mean, maybe this is what you're getting to, but that should totally inform how you use a nib and how you use a brush and how you use a micron and all that stuff, because it's the same thing to me.
Yeah, I'm just more speaking in the, maybe not in the technical sense of how it turns out, but more like, in your
I'm talking
head.
in practical application of like the physical pressure, the grip that you have. Like, so I remember when, I don't remember if it was first year or second year or whatever, but I remember one of my teachers at Keyword School, they made a big stink, and it's something that has always stuck with me, especially digitally, because digital, both with Cintiq and with Apple Pencil and all that stuff, death grip is such an easy thing to fall into. It's so easy to fall into just gripping the thing like crazy, and then that's how you really damage your tendons, But like he would go by our desks and he'd be like, you should be in the zone. If you're in the zone inking, you should be inking in a way, and I should be able to walk by and just pull the brush or the pen out of your hand, because like you should not be death gripping it. You should not be holding it that lightly or that tightly. Like,
and that was something I really fell into a trap with doing. And also working on my old digital surfaces, and that's why, I'm just having such a great experience with the Apple Pen. Apple Pencil, because it's got, the weight.
Yeah.
It feels very natural.
Yeah. They did a real number between, because I had that first gen Apple Pencil and iPad Pro, and it was good. I loved it a lot. Like and it's only, my opinion is only colored because of the second generation Apple Pencil. And that second generation Apple Pencil, fucking the way they did the weight on that is impressive as to how good it feels. Like it's
so good when I'm just using my iPad as an iPad.
Yeah.
I'm using the pencil.
Yep.
Like it's
a
modern marvel of design, I guess.
Did you use the first gen pencil at all for anything?
No.
Okay.
This is my first experience with
no, and that's great though. Like, but I would just like, if you did, you would be like, this is like it's weird how it's just like 2 years difference between when one came out, but it's light years ahead of each other. And you're sitting there going like, God, this feels like the perfect pen, the perfect pencil, the perfect like whatever. Like it's like, I wish Apple would make physical things that you could write with, just because I'm like, you figured it out.
Yeah. Just jam some ink in the
and honestly they never should, but I only wish they would, because if you look at my box full of like unopened Jet Pens orders, you'd realize that I would just buy the fuck out of it, whatever. So
yeah, and that's another thing too. I do kind of miss ordering from Jet Pens.
Oh, same. I was going through it's like I have this boxes of stuff that I keep unopened or whatever, but like I was going through one of my drawers of like, I would just order shit, and I would just order like in bulk, because then you get free shipping and all this other stuff.
Yeah, it's so easy to hit that $25 mark.
Yeah,
to get the free shipping.
The thing is like I'm ordering pens that are like $3 and $4 a piece and all this other stuff. I have so many dozens of things from Jet Pens that are just unopened. Like it's stupid. I need to just start donating shit, or like finding like artist friends who just need shit, because like it's not cool. But also at the same time, I do collect like Blackwing pencils, so I also have literally dozens of those that are unopened, but I also like I'm stupid and I collect them now. So
there's we're talking a lot about digital art, working digitally, but I kind of think there's a fun mirror to this with between you and I, where
Mm-hmm.
I kind of seem to, still favor traditional, but when it comes to making music, I'm like all digital, and
Mm-hmm.
you are all amps and
Oh
live
no, but
rigs,
that's well, I'm
well,
not.
not all, not
Yeah.
100%, but you definitely have the
I've gotten way back more into
gear
it. Yeah.
to mic and amp and
Yeah,
things like that.
yeah.
Meanwhile, the only physical thing I have are my guitars to plug into my interface
Well, and
to go into my programs, which I kind of think it's kind of a fun mirror, because
yeah.
it's kind of just shows people kind of gravitate to what they work best with, what they are most comfortable with.
Sure.
And you've grown very comfortable with digital and being able to work fast, get your workflow down, how you want to do things. And, I think at this point it's negligible, the sound quality
Mm-hmm.
between certain digital products and analog live products.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, you can, there would be the super listeners who can tell distinct differences, but for the most part, for the music I make and the music you make, it's not really that wide of a gap.
No. Well, and that's the thing that just to do like the brief rundown is like, yeah, I came up analog, like, it's like first guitar in like 91, 92, I don't know, something like that. And I still have it. It's a fucking cream white, like Stratocaster. It looks like the one I got it because I asked my parents for it, because it's what looks like what Jimi Hendrix played. And it's like I played amps. I had a half stack for a long time. I still have the Crate Blue Voodoo head that I had the half stack for, but then I went to a Mesa F50, and I have a Marshall 212 that I run through it. But like after I ran a quote unquote home studio. It was like a it was like a separate building from the house that we built into a studio, me and my studio partner. And like did everything like we did everything analog there, but it was also like everything was Pro Tools. Like it was analog in the sense that we ran through like a 70s console, but all of it went straight into Pro Tools, and then Pro Tools was where like the real kind of like grunt work of like editing went to and stuff like that. But I only say that to say that after that stopped, I sold a bunch of gear, got rid of a bunch of gear, and then the gear I kept moved with me to Atlanta, and then I had I won't bore anybody with this, but I had a tree fall in my house, and I lost a ton of shit there. So after that, like, I went all digital because I was like, well, physical things are just gonna go away because I clearly cannot be trusted with them, or neither can nature. But like, it became a sense of like, well, the technology caught up with my ability to create, which is constant, in the sense that like, oh, well, I can plug my guitar into my iPad. I can plug my guitar into my phone. So I just for a year, and so instead of having to like figure out how I was going to get a Pro Tools rig and how to get a machine that could handle all of it, the technology caught up with like my need to just constantly generate ideas. So it just became like me just putting everything into GarageBand, and then like and then when I started writing for the album that I put out, like after the tree fell on me, like the Girl, a Tree, a Dream, like when I started writing it, I wrote it in GarageBand. Like I just plugged, I used an iRig and plugged into, and it kind of got me into GarageBand. It got me away from this thing that I didn't realize I was chained to the physical aspect of the sound, and it got me into like tone chasing and like figuring out how to use all this stuff digitally. So then it got me like, and I went to that, and then after I made the album, and then like I ended up making the album like tracking it analog and live with a bunch of friends back in Kansas City. But like when it came time to writing the stuff that I'm doing now, which has been over the last like 3 to 4 years, like I was like, you know what, fuck it, I'm gonna make as much of it digitally as I can. but weirdly in that process, and I apologize for rambling, but weirdly in that process, it got me excited about gear again. So I'm sitting here and I'm doing all this stuff digitally, and I'm doing all this digital tone chasing, and I'm able to recreate the sounds that I loved. But then I still have like, well, fuck it, like get new tubes for the Mesa F50, like turn on the 212, like, oh shit, I really miss having that Fender Twin that I stupidly sold in 1999. Like, because I'm a fucking, like, I had bought a 1970, and dude, I'm gonna please allow me to go off on this, but like I had bought a 1979 Fender Twin Reverb when I was like 16 or 17, and it is the most amazing sounding thing that I've ever heard in my life. And I regret selling it ever since the hour after I sold it. And I needed rent money. And I was fucking like 18, 19, and I had nothing, and I was about to get kicked out of my apartment, that kind of shit. Like I needed rent money. So like, and we've all been there. So ever since I sold it, I've wanted it back. And then when I had the money, I went back to the dude I sold it to. He had already sold it and didn't know where it was. So, but anyway, I found one earlier this year. Every year on Craigslist, a couple times a year, I'm just checking for twin reverbs that are in my budget, which is basically less than $1,000. Found a dude selling an early 70s twin earlier this year. He like was super like, are you going to treat this thing good? This used to be my dad's. I want to make sure this is going to a good home. And I'm like, you have found the perfect buyer, sir. But it was all part of my thing of like, I don't need this, but everything I'm doing digitally is trying to replicate this. And it very much is a very a mirror version of the digital stuff too. Like I don't need the physical tools that I still acquire, but the things I make digitally are still trying to replicate that thing. That tone, like that tone of a parallel pen, that tone of a 102, that tone of a 107, the Windsor and Newton number 2 that I had in 1999, that they don't make them like that anymore. Like they don't Windsor and Newtons they aren't made the same anymore. Like I switched to the Raphaels because I was like, fuck it, I'm not going to pay $40 for a brush that works, that it doesn't work the same anymore. Or $60 or whatever it is. So now it's like I buy the Raphaels by the dozen, and I'm paying like $6 to $8 per brush total, and I just beat the fuck out of them, But anyways, like I'm rambling, but like
no, this is the inside baseball stuff
yeah.
that
but
we both like talking about. So.
Yeah, and it's like, and I've gotten back into like my pedals. The last vestige of me refraining from getting back into the analog world, quote unquote, was all of my pedals were sitting in a box. And the dumbest thing I did this year was I got them out of the box and I hooked them up, and then I immediately started buying more pedals. But that's what happens with paper stuff too. Like it's like I have like this stack of 11x17 Bristol that they don't fucking sell anymore. Strathmore doesn't make it this way anymore, but I have it, and I'm like, I'm loathed. I need to use it, but I'm loath to use it because then I'm like, well, then I'll use it and then I'll want more.
I have to ask, what paper is that?
It's not even that great. It's the Strathmore 300 series 11x17 vellum, but they don't fucking sell it anymore. They don't sell it in this way anymore. So they used to sell it pre-cut 11x17 sheets that you could buy in like smooth vellum, whatever. They still sell the smooth, but from what I've seen, and maybe I'm wrong, so someone will probably comment or tell you that I'm stupid, but like every time I've looked to buy more, they don't make it in the pre-cut 11x17 vellum anymore. They make it in the pads 14x17. They might make pads of 11x17, but the pads, it's probably because I'm crazy, but I feel like they're different. They're just different.
No, it's one of those, artist things, especially with comic book artists. Like paper is such a
it's so specific.
It's such a thing some of us talk about, but not a lot of us do. Like I have my favorite papers or paper, but I also have the paper I'm going to use because the paper I like is twice as much, 3 times as much as I like the Strathmore 500 plate.
That's what I was about to say. Is Tony Moore always tried to get me to go to the 500. And he would always give me a sheet or two, and I'd be like, yeah, man, it's cool, but like I think I'm just way more trash than that, you know? Like
Well,
like
the thing is,
he was always like, and he loved them, but he's sitting there fucking inking on them using a goddamn like Pentel or whatever, whereas like I'm sitting there using a brush and a 300, and it's like we probably should have switched tools, you know?
well, the thing is, even the 500 plate, like I've had varying degrees of quality with that.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and I'm loath to buy it just because I
It's
could
so much
buy
more
a pack
expensive.
of 24 or 21 pages for like
Yep,
$30,
yep.
or I can wait till Michael's has a sale and get like 4 pads of 300 smooth for like $15.
Yep. And that's the thing.
So
And the thing that I realized very early on is that like, you know, the what it get whatever gets out of the way of yourself. And, you know, for Tony it was the 500, for me it was the 300, and the 300 was so consistent for so long. And honestly, like I bought so much of it. I've probably got like a dozen packs of 11 by 17 still, because I went mostly digital, so like I just still have it. But it was so consistent for so long that like it just has a feel and a weight to it and a way that it responds, that even like I'm even so used to it that like I understand how that paper works in humidity
mhm.
and, you know, all these other conditions and stuff like that. And it's all stuff that like to kind of go roundabout back to something else, but like I remember like being like 11, 12 years old, and like reading Cerebus or whatever, and like regardless of whatever you think of fucking Dave Sim, it doesn't matter. um he would talk about this, and he eventually put this out in like a full thing, but in the back of Cerebus for a long time he ran like a how he approached things and how he thought about things. And he talked extensively about like, you know, like buying multiple things of paper, buying multiple nibs, buying different types of ink, and you try all of those combinations together until you find that combination that is right for you. What someone else does is not always going to work for you. It's just a launching point for the thing that may work for you once you've actually like found the right like combination of chemicals, you know? And
Yeah,
this is me paraphrasing, but like, and
yeah.
that informs, because I found that at such a young age, and because that was so imprinted on my brain by all the stuff he was talking about. It's like, well, you grab this level of pencil and you try it on this paper and you draw it, and like, well, that doesn't feel right. Keep the pencil, switch the paper, draw it again. Oh, that feels better, but it's still not quite right. Switch the pencil, try it on this paper. Oh, that's better. You know what I mean? Like you do
Yeah.
that, and that's what we do as guitar players too. Like I feel
Mhm.
like it's like, well, okay, what's the thing that's resisting? Is it the way the strap fits on my shoulder? Is it
Do I
the
need a
gauge?
higher string gauge?
Yeah,
Do I need
yeah,
a different pick?
yeah.
Like I finally like so many of these things. First off, it's a low, very, very low bar, but that's probably the smartest thing Dave Sim has ever said.
I think that like, I mean, I'm not gonna fucking stand for the dude because he said so much shit that I just wholeheartedly disagree with. But I spent
I'm
like,
taking a little bit of piss on him. I know.
oh no, it's
Just
fine, dude. Please, like, it's fine. But it's one of those things where I genuinely, I will sit there and I will give all the caveats, but I will say like, there's probably no other human being aside from Phil Hester who was more influential on young me wanting to make and knowing how to make comics than Dave Sim. You know, and it's like, and it's one of those things where like, it's unfortunate that he believes what he does, but he did what he did, and that made so many of us who we are. You know what I mean? It's like,
yeah.
I fucking completely disagree with most of Billy Corgan's like politics and like beliefs and whatever, but Gish and Siamese Dream and Melancholy are fucking they will never cease to be influential to me the way they are. You know?
Mhm,
Like,
mhm.
it's, and so it's like I definitely feel I am one of those. I'm not an apologist, but I'm definitely one of those people that is like, yeah, you have to separate the art from the artist, because if I didn't, then I wouldn't like anything.
Yeah.
So
And to touch on what you've been saying, I think one of the things I thankfully realized a couple years ago was, we're always looking for that tool. We're always
yeah,
looking for the
yeah,
pen, the paper, the the string gauge, the right pick, the right pickup for our guitar, the right hell, even the right instrument chord or the right whatever. And I think I got to a point to where I finally realized what I like and what I like using best, but also, if I need the pencil, I'm just going to grab a fucking pencil. Which one's sharp? I'm going to grab it.
Yep. Yeah.
And I'm not going to be searching for 15 minutes looking for my favorite mechanical pencil.
Yeah.
Because that's the only one I can draw this page with.
That's a huge thing. Like the thing that I realized, and I kind of touched on it earlier, but it's like, buying a Friend brush or using a Kyle brush, or, if someone else uses my brush. The thing is I am never going to get any tool that someone else uses and look like or sound like that person, because it's just impossible. I am me. But I also realized that I am not bound to the tool, in that the sense that the tool does influence how I create. So I play differently on my baritone guitar than I do on my telly. But I ink differently with my 102 than I do with my brush or with the parallel pen. But they all are. It's still me,
Yeah.
Like I'm not like Sorry,
and not to talk about stuff I've said before, but there's a previous podcast I did called The Right Tool, where I'm talking about this, like where it doesn't matter the tool you're using, because you're the one making the marks. So in essence, it's great to try things, but you also got to realize, like, the thing you think is, like, I use this example, and since barely anyone listened to that episode, I can repeat it here without too much overlap.
I was about to say, like, even if like you had like tens of thousands of listeners, you can still repeat it and nobody's gonna mind. Like,
Gabriel Rodriguez, astounding artist.
Yeah,
he loves using the pit pens. I'm like, great, I love his lines. I'll try pit pens. Fucking hated them.
Yeah, because you're not.
And, I wasn't expecting to look like him, but I'm like, I do not like what these do at all. Yeah, not for me. Next, please. So it's just kind of that thing where it's like, we always want to know what everyone's using, because we're always up for trying things, because if we can make a new mark in a new way, that's great. But it's the danger of getting hung up on those things. And I tend to get less hung up on that artistically, but I tend to get hung up on that musically, because since I have this, library of digital amp sims, like, I can literally choose from all these things, even though, I know I'm probably just going to go back to using the, 5150 Triple Crown blend that I use from the Will Putney, suite.
Yeah.
Like,
which I hear that one's good. I haven't tried it yet, but I hear it's good.
I absolutely love it.
Is that what you're using on the stuff that you sent me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. It sounds great, dude. Sounds great.
Did I send you a link to the songs I'm doing for my comic? That's all Will Putney.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, that's all Will Putney stuff.
Okay. No, that's great.
And
well, it's like I bought that, like, Joey Sturgis Misha Misha plugin, the whatever it's called, and I fucking love it. But it's
Toneforge.
Toneforge. Yes, the Toneforge Misha Mansour. And I used it on I used it largely on one song that I sent you. So that I don't know if you remember, but track 2 on that last EP I sent you, Take Me Home. That one is all Toneforge Misha Mansour, and it works for that song because that was my shitty attempt at like I can't write like Periphery, but that song was very influenced by Periphery. It doesn't even sound like Periphery. Everyone who listens to it's like, man, I love the kind of STP like Weiland vibe on this. I'm like, cool, that's great, because I'm super influenced by that. Which also speaks to, like, even if I tried to sound like somebody else, I could not. Like, it's gonna sound like something, it's gonna sound like me or whatever. But like I didn't pursue doing more using that plugin other than that song, really, because I was just like, it sounds like me, and I didn't buy this to sound like me, and that was the wrong thing. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's just,
I bought it thinking I would sound like something else, and it's like, oh, that was $70 just to figure out that I'm still going to sound like me no matter what distortion you put on it.
Yeah, I mean, I've done I've on pretty much every Marshall JCM 800 clone amp
Mhm.
sim that I have,
Yeah.
I always go down a rabbit hole of trying to make a Zach Wild chain.
Oh
Like,
yeah, right,
you know,
right. I don't blame you. I don't blame you, dude.
for
That's
no other reason, just to see if I can do it.
yeah. But
And
that's the
you
thing is,
know,
it's like yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
and you know, it's not that hard to replicate or anything like that. But it's just kind of like
No, but
that thing where you're
you
searching for someone else's sound,
yeah.
and
Well, two things to that. One, you don't have his hands. You know, like
don't.
that's why.
But
That's
God,
why.
no, I don't.
You know what I mean? No, but I mean that's the thing. Is like that's you know, and um, again, like, I only bring it up just because it was such a formative thing when I was like 11 or 12. But there was like an example in the back of Cerebus where Dave talks about working with Gene Day. If any of your audience has not looked up Master of Kung Fu with Gene Day and all that stuff, it's such amazing work. I think either Shane White or somebody on Twitter the other day was reposting a bunch of Master of Kung Fu stuff, and it's just still mind blowing to even 40 years later, 50 years later. But anyway, so Dave was working with Gene in the studio, and Dave's anecdote was that like he kept redrawing this hand over and over again, and Gene Day walked up behind him and said like, "Yeah, that's a Dave Sim hand, like what are you worried about?" And that was so fucking like enlightening to me as like a 13-year-old, because I spent all this time trying to draw like Jim Lee, or trying to draw like Rob Liefeld, or trying to draw like Will Spertasio, or trying to draw like Mark Silvestri, and like it really kind of helped me at a very young age go like, I am not those guys, I'm never going to be those guys. It did not stop me from trying to emulate people, because in college, I consciously chose, like almost every semester at the Kubert School, I drew like somebody else differently, is because I wanted to think differently. I wanted to push myself. So it's like, I spent like a semester trying to draw like Magnolia. I spent like a semester trying to draw like Charest. Spent like a semester trying to draw like Adam Hughes. I spent like a semester trying to draw like Jim Lee. And I failed horribly at all of it, but it helped me. It did help me though, in that I figured out what the limits of my ability were at the time, and what I needed to do to get better. But it also it taught me how to, and I do the same thing with music too. It taught me how to dissect what was going on. It taught me how to listen to or feel the different parts of what was moving. And it's like with comic art, and especially with comic art, if you're really trying to dissect it, you should ultimately be trying to look at, does this tell the story effectively or not? And that is kind of what storyboarding helped me to do. Is storyboarding helped me to realize that most comic stories, I say most, and that's fucking shitty, but there's a lot of comic stories that are not being effectively told. They are comics, they are drawn, and they have words, but when you really look at what the story is that you can glean from the combination of those two, and then you look to see if they're working together, they're not. And looking at other artists and really dissecting other artists like that, and dissecting how, whether or not they, and especially being a child of the 90s, where most stuff did not serve the story very well, or the story did not serve the art very well, like
Putting it generously.
yeah, being generous, yeah. But like looking at that stuff, and it really taught me a lot about like, okay, I can dissect this person's style, I can dissect this person's thought process, but the one thing that I cannot do, and I'm thankful for this, but the one thing I cannot do is I cannot be in their heads to see whether or not they cared about story at all. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that let me know that, like, and it's the same thing with music. I care about songwriting. Like, I don't claim to be great at it. It's just, but it's what I enjoy. It's storytelling. I enjoy songwriting. I enjoy the craft of writing. Like, I'm not a phenomenal guitar player. I'm not a phenomenal musician. I enjoy writing and storytelling.
And I think that's very apparent in the work you put out.
You're not very good at any of this, but that's apparent. No,
well, you know what I mean.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. I do. I'm just being shitty. No, but it's very, and it's like, if you look at my comics work is aesthetics aside, I am very focused on, or I try to be very focused on the story that I'm telling. Like with Gearhead, I was very, it's like I was very invested in what Dennis and I were trying to do. Same thing with Love Struck even more so. Love Struck was heart-wrenching for me to do, and if anything, was one of the toughest books I've ever drawn, because I was so mired in those characters and in that story, and I was so invested in telling that story the best way I could possible. And also, I was going through a really shitty time personally that was informing my view of storytelling and my view of how that story should be told. And if I'm doing my job right, that's what everything I do should be. Is it should be an accurate representation, or not accurate, but it should be a representation of where my head is at and my relationship with story at any given time, And that's the way I feel about songwriting too, is like, and songwriting is much more, especially, since I've come into, like, I stupidly didn't start singing until like 4 or 5 years ago, because I let people discourage me from it when I was a teen. But once I started taking it seriously and really practicing and being like, fuck it, I don't care if I suck. This is going to be all me, because I'm tired of like relying on other people, and it needs to be. And also, nobody can tell. Like, the first album I put out is a loose concept album about falling for a girl, having a tree fall on me, and then falling out of my mind. That's why it's called A Girl, a Tree, a Dream. But like, it really was like me going like, it's really me putting my relationship with story and storytelling on the line, and saying that, all the best songs that I love from bands and artists and singers that I do love are conversations with themselves, and all the best artists that I love are really having this conversation with themselves and love affair with themselves and story and their relationship with story. So even though, like, you can say what you want about like any of the artists that I love or have mentioned or whatever, stuff like that, but they all have a specific relationship with storytelling that has influenced not just what they have done, but it's influenced their career trajectory to a degree. And I feel like that, if anything, that speaks more to what you were saying about, like, you can see that in my work. And like, while I worked on Archer for like eight almost 9 seasons, where like, it's very, you can argue about its story, but it's still it's so character based, and like the show that I'm working now is so character and story based and stuff like that. And it's like, these are the things that I care about, and I'm rambling, so I'll stop.
No, well, first, I can completely, sympathize or, just agree with you on, the storytelling thing and all that. Cause, for myself making music, I got back into it because, I just needed that outlet. And then, a year, 2 years ago or whatever, I was trying to do a song for a friend's book, and, I couldn't find anyone to do like these, screaming guttural vocals. So I'm like, one day in the car, I'm just like, fuck it, I'll try it. And,
Dude, same.
I don't consider myself good or even a singer, but, I'm working on these things now myself, because I don't have time or patience to wait for anybody else to do it. And
that's a huge thing.
You mentioned your album and kind of being a concept thing, and I haven't mentioned it too much, but I sent you some snippets of things I've been working on for my own album EP thing, and it's very much going to be story, not like a full on like concept album linear, but there's definitely a theme and a story going with it.
That's more what mine is. Yeah, I say loose concept in that it's thematically, like, you can track the 3 sections.
Yeah, it's not, the songs I find the songs I write and the lyrics I write, even though I'm writing heavier, aggressive music or whatever, things like that, it's not like, oh, I'm gonna fucking kill you and beat your ass. It's, the things I'm writing and I'll be, quote unquote singing, screaming about are, bigger issues than, or, more personal things than just, bravado or, tough guy stuff. Not that metal does that, because we know metal has a lot of really fantastic lyricists who are almost hidden because everything's, like, it's you don't hear what they're saying, but if you read the lyric sheets, you're like, oh, this is some pretty heavy shit.
Yeah, definitely.
But and we've barely touched on your comic work here, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention that the miniseries you did with Blair Butler, Hearts,
yeah,
is one of my favorite miniseries, like, period.
Oh, thanks, dude. I appreciate that.
I thought it was a phenomenal book, and I was really, really just in it.
That's great.
It's that kind of like Rocky-esque story that I'm just like such a mark for.
Oh, dude, same, hard same.
Well,
sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Well, the thing about that is like I was not looking for that book. I did not want to draw. I had drawn a lot of stuff that other people had written, and I enjoyed some of it, and like the stuff basically the stuff I've done that I don't talk about that I didn't enjoy doing. But it's like I love working with Dennis. I love working with Phil Hester. It's like I love working with Steve Niles and stuff like that. And Blair is also one of those too. Like I was not looking for her, but I had done some stuff. Hickman had asked me to do some stuff with him at Marvel, and I can't remember. It was just very little stuff, but he was super into me doing some stuff on Shield. And I don't remember if this happened before or after, but around the same time, he hit me up. He's like, "Hey, I got a buddy who has a book she's trying to put out. Like, I think it might be right for you. Would you take a look at it?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure. Whatever." The fact that she was on TV and wrote for TV had no weight for me whatsoever, because I was not impressed by that stuff then, and I'm not.
If anything, it's almost kind of like, do I really want to?
No, same. And I've worked in TV, and I've worked with a lot of amazing people who are like, "Dude, do you want to do a book?" And I'm like, "No, not at all." Because also, I'm not like, at the end of the day, like I barring Dennis, barring Blair, barring Steve Niles coming to me and saying they want to do stuff, I'm not looking. I mean, there's one person I've been talking to lately that I might do something with shortly, but like, I'm not looking to draw other people's shit anymore. Like I really am not. Like and it's no offense to anybody else. This is a purely selfish thing. But Blair came to me, and she came to me with a story about something that I had no connection to other than watching it on Saturdays. But she made it not even about, like, it didn't even have to be about MMA. It didn't even have to be about fighting and stuff like that. It was about something that I related to so hardcore and still relate to this day. I would draw that book over and over again in a heartbeat, because she was telling a story about someone in there who had come to a crossroads in their life and had to make a decision, and realized that, and they made a decision, and at the end of that path, they realized, like, this is still difficult to this day for me to kind of like really express, and I'm not doing my feelings a good service about this, but like, someone who had reached they had reached a point with what they were doing where they said, "You know what? I got to walk away from this."
Mm-hmm.
And I've been there. Like, I feel like it came along and it helped me deal with like me not being a musician as a career. It helped me deal with like relationship stuff, dating and stuff like that. The same thing with Love Struck. Love Struck really helped me deal with my feelings about music. Really helped me. I'd say deal with, but it was me trying to process and deal with my feelings about music. It was very, very much me trying to process my friendships and dating life, in much to the detriment to some friendships and to some dating life. Like, Love Struck was a really rough one for me, but Heart was actually a good kind of like follow up to that for me emotionally, because it helped me, because I had gone through all that stuff. It helped me process those things in a way that I was not expecting. And working with Blair was like, I mean, you can't ask for a better friend and creative partner than Blair Butler. Like, she's amazing. To this day, like, I love her so much. I appreciate her so much, and we check in on each other so often. And it's like, I love that about her. I love that, we can just kind of like talk, and like, and it's not even like work related. It's just like, how are you? What's going on? How are you doing? But yeah, again, I'm rambling, but like, Heart was, I put so much, and this sounds so trite, but I put so much of my heart into that book that I really didn't want to let Blair down, but ultimately I didn't want to let myself down, because I related so much to what that story was trying to say. So,
and well, I think we can agree that a lot of the best art comes from catharsis.
Yeah, very much so.
And
yeah. Well,
and I think, you know, I see the theme of kind of the work you love, where it's less about what the quote unquote plot is or the setting. It's about the characters and the
very
people
much
and
so.
decisions they make. You know, from Archer, from this new thing you're working on, from Love Struck and Gearhead, and from and Heart, and you know, that's something that I think a lot of us kind of forget. You know, because you know, as I develop my own stories and things like that, I find myself worrying less about like, is this idea of the overall quote unquote plot too similar to something, or does it seem like this plus this too easy? Like ultimately that doesn't really matter to me.
No, yeah.
Because I'm more concerned on like, is this character going to be interesting enough for people to follow on whatever path I put them on?
Yeah.
So, you know, hearing that from you, who's someone, you know, as someone whose, you know, work I admire, it's definitely, you know, enheartening. If that's even a word.
Yeah. No, totally. Totally,
got heart on the brain.
Yeah.
It you know, it's to me, because it's like, yeah, it feels more right doing things like this. And you know, I don't want to get, you know, I could talk to you all day about music stuff, and we can keep going further down into a rabbit hole of gear and more comic talk and all that. But there's one question from Twitter we have.
Well, real quick before we get to that, I will say that like the way I've come to lately to kind of crystallize my thinking on that stuff is plot is I've never been a plot person. I've learned how to plot. I've learned how to utilize plot. But the way I've come to view it is that plot are the things that are inevitable. Plot is the thing that, like, you know, that your characters react to. Plot should never be a reaction from the characters. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the example that I use, and the thing that I really try to work towards with the things that I'm writing now and the things I'm working on now, and it really, like, part of the reason, like, I did a book like 7 years ago called Suicide Sisters that was all written and drawn by me. Part of the reason Volume 2 has taken so long is I rewrote it like fucking 8 billion times. But the thing that I realized, and thankfully I helped realize this via help from a friend who read one of the many dozens of drafts, was he's like, well, this is a really good story and it's all fun and it's all good, but your characters are all reacting to things. They are not acting. And it really crystallized a way forward for me that I just have within the last year or so have come to put to this term, which is every day the sun rises, every day the sun sets. This is plot. Plot is the things that your characters have no control over. What you can do is your characters can react to things in that time frame. So you have the ticking clock of the sun rises, the sun sets. Whether that's good or bad for your character is up to them, you know?
I think that's a very excellent way of wrapping up that idea. For someone to kind of take in.
It's something that helps me. So if someone else listens to this and it helps them, I hope so. Because it very much kind of took the weight of plot out of my brain, you know?
Awesome. So as you
had the one question from Twitter, the singular question from Twitter,
because people, you know, really dropped the ball on this.
They did. Well, also, I think because of my work schedule, man, you know, we'll have to do this again sometime, and I'll be much better about promoting being on here. So,
well, you know, while I'm thankful to have a nice long list of potential guests, you know, there's no way in hell this is going to be your only appearance on here. So don't even worry about that.
Yeah. No. Well, plus, like, I enjoy talking to you on Twitter, so I knew I would enjoy talking to you like this way, and I really have.
I appreciate that.
You know,
yeah. I'm always concerned of how I come across to people because, you know, it just normal anxieties, I guess.
Well, you're terrible and you're awful, and I hate you, and I never want to talk to you again.
That feels better.
Yeah. Yeah.
So our question is from my favorite question asker, former guest and artist Dave Jordan.
Oh, okay.
He wants to know who'd win in a knife fight, Lemmy or Cliff Burton.
Oh,
now
okay.
I had followed up asking if is Lemmy drunk and is Cliff high, And he replied, "They're in their natural states, so yes."
Well, I do remember seeing this on Twitter. I didn't realize this was in response to that. And I honestly, like I said earlier, my work day was fucking long, and I enjoy my job, but some days are longer than others. So, I didn't realize what this is in reference to, but now I do, and that's funny. Thank you, Dave, for asking. But I will say that I have the dumbest but the truest answer that I could ever have to this, and it's the same answer from Airheads, which is, who would win in a fight, Lemmy or God? Trick question. Lemmy is God, so Lemmy.
Yes. I think Cliff would let Lemmy just stab him.
That's exactly it. Like, yeah, you it doesn't matter what.
He's like, I guess Lemmy stabbed him. Thanks, dude.
even zombie Cliff Burton would be like, yeah, Lemmy.
Yeah, I think in the aftermath, Lemmy would then help Cliff bandage up his wound, and then they go out drinking.
Yeah. Can you imagine those two playing fucking Ace of Spades together?
God.
Like, just no guitar, just bass drums, and Lemmy singing.
Just and then, you know what? Gotta go full Spinal Tap with that. Like, just full bass on. Just throw Jason Newsted on there. Let's get some.
You know what, man? I am a fucking Jason Newsted stan. I am not a Robert Trujillo fan at all.
That solo album he put out a few years ago, it's so good.
It's good, man. Yeah, it's good. But
I'm completely bummed that just like dissolved. But
yeah,
I understand.
Yeah, I'm not even a Newsted apologist. I'm just a Newsted fan. I'm a fan of that dude. I don't blame him for leaving. I hate that he left. I wish he was still in the band. I wish those dudes were not such shitheads to him. Mm-hmm. But because also the best music they ever made was with that dude, and they're never going to be that good again to me. So.
Yeah, as much as I love Trujillo as a player and just as a general dude,
he's a fucking phenomenal musician. But yeah,
it's not the same.
Nope.
It's
also Jason was the heart of that band. Jason was the beating. After Cliff died, Jason was the resuscitated beating heart of that band, and he had such passion, and it came through in everything. Like, I don't give a fuck that he didn't write a lot of it. His heart is in so much of it. So,
and you can't deny it. It's like, even the simple fact, like, just his backing vocals were just so. You rarely, like, I'm not going to say he's like a better vocalist for Metallica than James, but like, when you have someone who can, just give Jason whiplash and it sounds killer. Like,
he was a wonderful complement to everything that was doing.
Yes.
His tone sat underneath James and Kirk, but right above Lars. Like, whereas Robert's tone, even on albums, doesn't do that. It doesn't sit where it's supposed to.
No, yeah, it's a loss, definitely, for the band.
Yeah.
I mean, I love Metallica. They're my forever number one band. But
I didn't realize go ahead.
I can totally just say, like, Newsted leaving was just like, all the major excitement is just kind of like went with that for me.
I will completely admit that I do listen to and love Saint Anger, but hold on. Before everybody gets mad.
Hey,
hold on.
You know what?
Before everyone
Don't worry.
gets mad.
I'm not totally not in agreement with you.
Right.
So.
But hold on though. I don't like the album. I like the live version of the album that
the DVD
came with
that
the album. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the album is horrible shit, but I will watch the fuck out of that live version of them in their rehearsal space any day of the week. I love watching that goddamn thing.
Here's the
it sounds better to me. It's played better. Like, it's like, I'm like, well, this should have been the album.
Yeah. I came into Metallica in the Load Reload era.
Same. Same. I came in during Injustice for All, but I'm that asshole that's like, Load and Reload are my favorite Metallica albums. So,
And I went back, and I love all the eras, to varying degrees. But up until recently, I discovered each Metallica album that I listened to at like the right time I needed to listen to that album.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense, yeah.
So when Saint Anger came out, like, that was kind of where my headspace was at. Like, just that, like, primal, like, this doesn't, like, while I don't absolutely hate the album, I'm also like, this is an album they needed to make, but not necessarily needed to release.
Dude, I think that's so that's so fair, and I think it's interesting that like they released what they, it's kind of like with Deftones, they were working on an album when Chi died called Eros that like everyone wants them to release, and they have yet to release it. And I'm sitting there going like, you know what, man, as much of a fan I am, as much as I want to hear that shit, maybe they just shouldn't,
Yeah.
And it's like they shelved it for a reason. And I feel the same thing about like with Metallica. It's like, well, clearly they had to keep the machine going rather than just being like, you know what, let's sit on this one.
And I think that's kind of what, like, it's not that I dislike Death Magnetic or Hardwired.
I have the same issue with Death Magnetic that everyone else does, is the fact that it was mixed so hard that it's clipping at every fucking beat. Like whose decision was that?
And I think, but for me, it just kind of like, it feels like it's the Metallica machine rolling along.
Yeah, yeah.
And while there's a few high points here and there, like it really just feels like, Lars and James doing their thing. Yeah. Rob's doing whatever he, is playing bass.
Yeah.
And they're just kind of like, yeah, Kirk, go ahead, do your thing.
Yeah.
Because, as much as people like shit on Kirk and all that, like,
Kirk's fucking great.
If anyone's going to put out like a solo album that I would be excited about, it would be Kirk.
It's Kirk, yeah.
Because I'm like, I want to hear what that sounds like. I want to hear donuts.
That's the thing, is him and Jason, I can say the same thing about, because I do believe this is true, is that him and Jason are the most well-rounded musicians in that band.
Yeah.
Especially like I feel that's especially true about Kirk. You read any interview with that dude, he's dropping names of like indie shit like left and right. And I'm not talking like, indie shit that everybody's into. I'm talking like indie shit because he does his like due diligence. He's looking for new stuff. He's constantly challenged and interested in new stuff. He's constantly supporting new stuff by talking about it. And I'm like, this dude gets it. This dude gets it.
Yeah, and is he the most technical player anymore? No. Is he the fastest player anymore? He never was. But if you want to look at a person's catalog and see who's wrote the most memorable solos, the most solos that crowds just sing along to in every concert, like, Dave Mustaine didn't do that. Maybe that's not the point of Dave Mustaine, but like, you can't deny that the guy favors melody over wizardry. Well, and if that he's doing his thing the way he wants to do it. Though I do think the most recent Metallica albums, it seems like he's playing along. And
I hate to assume that because you want to, but I agree with you though. So, but I just have to give the caveat of like, man, like, is it just because we're jaded assholes?
It could be 100%. And I would love nothing more than like, 3 months from now, I throw on Death Magnetic and I'm like, oh wait, I was fucking wrong. Like, not that I hate the album. I like, when it first came out, anytime a new Metallica album comes out, it's like the only thing I'm listening to for a while. It's just,
I didn't realize, like, I am trying to come to terms with the fact that I am a Metallica fan. Like, it's been really tough. I find myself watching so many, like, documentaries and making ofs and live shows that at one point, like, a couple months ago, I was like, when in the fuck did I become a Metallica fan? Like, when did this happen?
I mean, that was,
because,
like, I can't tell you how many times I watched, my teenage years, year and a half of the the live shit stuff.
And all that.
My buddy and I, we dragged my then fiance, now wife, to and his girlfriend at the time to some kind of monster in the theater. And
God, I wish I could have seen that in the theater.
Oh man, I love my wife and I feel bad. I subjected her to full on Dolby surround Lars chewing gum. Like, I feel so bad.
The fact
like
that she still had any intimate relations and then married you after this is amazing. Like,
because just hearing Lars gnaw on gum, like, and try, and his little like, is he coked out speech, like thing going on. Like, I'm like, oh, bless you, honey, bless you so much for enduring this for me.
There's a bit. I'm trying to see if I can find it really quick. I'm trying to see if I can find a GIF, but like I don't remember what it. But you'll know it when I'm talking about it. There's a bit where his dad is on the couch. And
delete that.
Yes, yes.
Um,
It's me and some of my coworkers at work fucking reference that constantly.
I would delete that.
I would delete that.
I actually,
it's like, oh god, and it's like, Lars, why did I realize you're still mad at your dad. We all are. We get it. But you sometimes it's like a broken clock. They're right every once in a while.
Yeah. I actually referenced that earlier when I was recording my Machine Head rundown.
Nice. Okay.
It was in reaction to a certain cover song that they did.
Yeah. That police song should never have happened. Ugh,
man,
it's rough. It's the thing is though and we both mentioned this. It's on an album that we both like, that we both enjoy, but it is the worst part of that album.
Yes.
I think it's really tough for bands to cover Police anyways, because the Police it's not like the Beatles, man. Like the Beatles, anybody could
you can adapt it, you can change it up.
Yeah, but the Police is so specific to that voice, that guitar,
just that rhythm, that groove.
Yeah, and I don't know that many people can do it. I really haven't heard. I mean, I'm sure there's somebody out there that has, that I'm just like blissfully unaware of.
I think I can't recall the best Police cover I've ever heard.
Right.
I'm sure when I heard the best one, it still sounded like someone doing a
bad
karaoke version of it.
Yeah, a bad Police. Yeah, no, I completely agree. And the thing is fucking Stuart Copeland is such a fucking amazing guitar player too. Like, oh god. Anyways.
Yeah,
wait, did I say Stuart Copeland and that's the drummer?
Yeah, I was gonna let that slide.
God damn it. No, you shouldn't. You should totally call that stuff out. God damn it. That's a terrible mistake to make too.
But it's I didn't expect this Metallica conversation, but I'm certainly welcoming it because I was growing up in in the mid to late 90s, like there was so much Metallica content. Like I used to frequent this website called Enter Sandman.
Okay. All right.
And I used to visit this site like way back when it was just like the web address was just numbers.
Oh yeah. Wow. Yeah. Okay.
Just like I used to do that with Ain't It Cool before. The head guy at that just turned out to be a fucking creep. But
yeah, but really, we all kind of saw that one coming, and
it's
there's some you don't see coming, whereas that one,
the Blade 2 review should have let us know that, right?
I forgot all about that. You're right. Yeah, you're right. That's funny.
But so I was just so like I remember like on that website they would put like, oh, we found demos of Jason's Chop House stuff. And listening over, like trying to like download it on like a 28.8K like internet speed, like just like waiting 45 minutes to listen to 30 seconds of like bad audio, like just. So yeah, I'm definitely a Newsted stan.
Yeah, no, same. By the way, because of my failing memory, I am shocked that Andy Summers is 77 years old.
Oh wow!
Holy shit. That is crazy to me. Hold on. Am I seeing that right? Hold on. Did I read that right? 1942.
Probably, yeah. Math holds up.
Okay. All right.
X.
Yeah.
Time.
Crazy.
She is coming for us all.
Yeah. No shit. Good Lord.
Well, just the other day, I was like, I was talking about this album from this band called Systematic.
42. He would just be. I'm bad at math. He's 77. No, he's 77. Yeah, 42, 77. Yeah. Anyways, album you were talking about?
This band called Systematic.
Okay.
And they came out. They're actually on Lars's imprint.
Oh, Lars has an imprint?
Well, back when they were still with Elektra.
Oh, okay.
He had an imprint called The Music Company.
Oh.
And he put them on. It was a really great, solid hard rock album. It's called. They're Systematic. The album's somewhere in between. I think you might dig it. It's very much
it's
reminiscent
something
of
I've heard that if it came out around that time, it's probably something I've heard.
And but I was talking about it and I was like, oh yeah, this album came out like oh fuck, 20 years ago. And it's like, holy
Yeah.
shit.
Dude, honestly, like I've been going on like kind of like I went on like a White Zombie kick a couple weeks ago,
Oh, no.
and like and listening to Las Exorcisto obviously, and then also oh fuck, what's the one with More Human Than Human on it? Whatever. Anyways, I'm listening to that one while I was on like a walk or whatever, and I'm just like, God, like it's crazy to me that this came out like 27 years ago.
Yeah.
It's whatever.
When Saint Anger
also,
hits,
I'm fucking old now, so like it's like I'm 42 now, so it's or 41. Jesus, I'm aging myself prematurely. But yeah,
well, this year will do that to you.
yeah, very much so. Yeah.
Yeah, when Saint Anger hits its 30th anniversary, I think that's where we're all gonna be like, what the?
We should get what we should do though is we should find a way for Yumi and Crank to do a cover of something off Saint Anger.
Well, I've long held this belief that Some Kind of Monster is an absolute killer song. It just needs to be rearranged.
Yeah. Yes.
And fixed up a bit. So
if you edit all of those songs down to about 3 to 4 minutes, they're pretty great. Yeah.
So
especially Invisible Kid. Invisible Kid is a fucking terrible song on that album, but I heartily feel that if you just do some good editing on it and rearranging a couple of where some like verse, chorus, verse, bridge stuff happens,
yeah, it's so we should do a Some Kind of Monster redo.
Yeah, I'm in for that. We just have to convince Crank that we need to keep the trash can drum. Like that's the one caveat I have is that the one thing I unabashedly love about that album is the shitty snare sound. So
you know what, the shitty snare sound, like it doesn't bother me at all.
Me
anymore.
neither. I love that fucking Mission Impossible song that they did.
I Disappear. Yeah, that was great.
I Disappear. I fucking love it, and it's got just a more produced sounding version of that sound.
Yeah, it's much more palatable. Mm-hmm. It's just like, because if you ever listen to like Load and Reload on like a higher volume in your headphones, the fucking snare on that, like it almost makes you wince. Like it's like so prominent. So it's like I'm used to like a loud ass snare.
I think their best. I mean, we can make this a Metallica podcast if you want, but I think their best produced album is the Garage Days 2.
Shut up. That is like exactly like that's the best sounding album of theirs.
That is them at the peak of everything. It's James's vocal peak.
Yeah,
it's their peak performance. It's their peak production. It's it's everything. Yeah.
Jesus, we're gonna start a Metallica podcast. We are so in line with everything about this. I'm not gonna say much more about it other than also I think Lars is extremely underrated as a drummer. But we're gonna that's we're not gonna go
to stop before we get too far.
We're approaching the 2-hour mark here.
No, it's been good, man. It's been good.
Yeah, you need to get to bed, so
I do.
I need to get a little bit of inking done before I get my butt to bed, and then so I have to ask the questions of the podcast before we go. Comics, coffee, metal. What you jamming to right now?
Oh man, coffee is the easiest one because I'm pretty bland. I just do the Dunkin' Donuts vanilla. So I buy the bag of that and I just Keurig that up every morning. Comics wise, I just read Bad Weekend by Brubaker and Phillips and loved that. My to read pile of comics is probably about 2 years deep right now, and it's all sitting next to my couch in my living room. So I need to get on that. But Bad Weekend was great. What else did I read? I just read something else lately that I was taken aback by. I don't remember. So yeah, we'll go with Bad Weekend. And then metal. Oh God, let me look at my iTunes real quick because I'm gonna fuck this up. I wish I had such a better memory than I do. Of course, the last thing I was listening to at Deftones. But new shit that I love, there's a band called End, and it's got Billy Reimer from Dillinger, that is really great. Their album is not fully out until June, but they've got a couple songs out, and it's just called End, E-N-D. The album's called Splinters from an Ever-Changing Face. It's brutal. If you like Dillinger, you'll fucking love it. It's brutal shit. But something a little bit more accessible would be, oh God, I've listened to such weird shit lately.
You don't have to. You don't have to worry about accessible.
The new Greg Puciato. I don't know how you say his last name. Again, from Dillinger. His new single "Deep Set" is fucking great. Periphery. I've been jamming on Hail Stand since it came out. Like I've become such a Periphery fan over the last like 4 years. A buddy at work got me onto P3 when it came out.
Okay.
And honestly, like that was I get emotional about that band for for a lot of weird reasons, but like that became the soundtrack of me working out and like just losing a bunch of weight and stuff like that. Because while I'm still heavy and I've put back on some of what I lost, I'm nowhere near what I was. But P3, and then by virtue going back in and listening to Alpha and Omega, and then P2. I'm not a real big P1 fan. Whatever, like the 7-string guitar players can fucking argue that shit. I don't care. But like P2, Alpha Omega, and P3 were the soundtrack for me, just like really putting the work in. And so seeing them live on a couple of those tours, and then when Hail Stand came out and loving that so much, like that album's been on loop for so long. Girl I've been hanging out with is super into country, so like she's like honestly like Cody Jinks has been one that I've been listening to a bunch. This guy named Ian Coe, I think is his name. Let me look this up to make sure I'm right.
I've heard his name being bandied around.
Okay. Let me look, because he has this song called Meth Head that is amazing. I think it's Ian No, IAN and then NOE. But he has, I would start with that song Meth Head. It's amazing. And then if you listen to his whole album Between the Country, it's great. Like I had dipped out on country for a long time, but like, and it's, obviously, it's like if you're hanging out with somebody new, they're going to kind of like turn you back onto some shit. But yeah, it's good stuff.
Have you ever checked out Loathe?
Loathe? I don't think so. You have to send me some stuff.
LOATHE. They're like super down-tuned.
I'm a big fan of the word. I have not listened to the band.
They have a really fantastic album. It's called I Let It In and It Took Everything. I'll send you a link to some of their stuff. It's like they use the bass sixes.
What does that mean?
The halfway between a guitar and a bass, like it's a baritone, but it's like the literal name is the bass six.
Okay.
I have one Squire. I have the Squire one, and Crank has the same one too, I think.
Okay.
But they use it. It's like it's got like these super P90s in it or something. It's just this super low tune, sludgy, but it's really really good stuff.
Okay.
I think.
Have you listened to Kowloon Walled City?
No.
Okay. That's what I was gonna ask you, if it was like that at all. But yeah. Then listen to Kowloon Walled City, man. I love that fucking band. It's so good. And in that vein, it's not really in that vein, but it's similarly kind of sludgy, but kind of angular, edgy shit. Is I love Julie Christmas. So if you look at anything she's been a part of, she did an album with oh shit, who'd she do that with? Let me find that real quick. Cult of Luna. She did, so it's Julie Christmas, Cult of Luna. It's called Mariner.
Okay.
It's one of my most enjoyable things I've heard in the last few years. It came out like a few years ago, but it's really good.
Awesome.
Yeah. So, anyways, I that you mentioning kind of sludgy, low tune, doomy stuff got me. That's like if you look at Kowloon, if you look at like Julie Christmas and like Mariner stuff, like Cult of Luna, like yeah, because it all goes back to me, like my love of I don't know what they're called now, but the band formerly known as ISIS.
Okay.
I don't know. Did you ever listen to them? Like,
I'm sure I did back when they first was like, oh, they're changing their name.
Yeah.
Like, oh, what's this band about? But
dude, I would totally go. I would totally dip into them if you could. Like, I got the fortune to see them with Tool before they stopped playing together, and I was like, fuck, they're so good. They're so good.
Awesome.
Anyways, yeah.
Well, that's a lot of great music recommendations. I always like it when people give me stuff to listen to.
I'm always looking for new shit, man. I'm not one of those people that tries to stay stuck in the stuff I grew up on. Like I love the stuff I grew up on, but I'm also like, give me the new.
Yeah.
Give me that new. I want it.
Yeah, so I definitely got some things to dive into. And hopefully people listening are going to dive into that as well.
Yeah.
And with that, Kevin, I want to thank you for coming on. Again, we could
so much for having
probably
me.
keep talking until our throats are raw, but unfortunately, we don't have that time.
Yeah, no shit. Yeah,
Sleep
it's
beckons.
1:16 EST here. So
Yeah. It's. I'm expecting my toddler to wake up any minute now and bust through the door because Daddy's
Lord,
being a
you're a
little too
saint,
loud.
sir.
We'll see.
Okay.
So fingers crossed for me. But Kevin, it's absolute blast having you on.
No,
Can't
thank
wait
you
till we
for
talk
talking to me
again.
So long, sir. Yeah.
If there's anything you want to tell everybody where to find you, anything you want to plug, now is the time.
I mean, I don't know when this will come out, so I won't plug anything.
It's coming out
specific.
next. It'll come out next Friday.
Okay, yeah, just kevinmellon.com, at kmellon on most social media stuff. So,
all right, simple,
yeah.
concise. I love it. All right, Kev, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks again for listening to the Comics Coffee Metal Podcast.